G'day there, and welcome to the next episode of 3FS TV's Theological Studies class, where we are reading Sura 2. This will be part 3. Remember, the title of this surah is the iconoclastic The Cow, Moo, fucking Moo. Alright, there's 286 verses, so we better keep rolling. Okay, who believe in the unseen? Reasonable, isn't it? This can be drawn to a parallel with the atom, which no one could see until Einstein proved it in 1905 with Brownian motion, where mathematical equations explained the motion of pollen grains in a vacuum. I think. You have to ask a physicist for that one. Okay, but let's continue. This isn't about physics because we haven't really touched on any here. We've touched on astronomy. If you'll recall, there are more than one world in the Quran, so it's evidence, but it's extremely poor. But there's a big book, so hopefully it'll keep compiling. Let's continue. Who observe prayer? Oh, okay. So this is something you should do. It's more of a recommendation, which is good. It's not a straight out demand. And out of what we have bestowed on them, expend for God. So what's been bestowed on them, you expend that for God. So again, you're the submission, and you're in the submissive position, and God is the omnipotent one, which is what he says and claims. So he's sticking with what he's been saying. And who believe in what hath been sent down to thee, and in what hath been sent down before thee, and full faith have they in the life to come. Okay, we've got to stop here and just pull this one apart, because this is page 1, okay, and it's starting to the plot is starting to break down. If this is going to be taken as a respectable tome that we should base our lives around, which is how we're going to approach this book. Remember, we're going to approach it as if we've never seen it before, even though I have read it before. I'm taking it just live, so like we're reading it together, and just to see if it's why are there really good reasons to think any of this is true, or to maybe some good moral lessons in there. I know for a fact there's some pretty fucked up ones. Let's see if they balance out. Okay, and here it says, and who believe in what hath been sent down to thee. This is the recitation, so this isn't like the Bible where some people wrote it down later. This the direct sort of verbatim, God's sort of using Muhammad as a puppet whilst he's having these seizures or fits of glory or whatever you want to call them. Okay, so this is what's been sent down. Literally, this has been sent down, and down implies that God's up there, but really maybe that's just because they lived in the 7th century and God was up there back then. Okay, and in what hath been sent down before thee, have full faith that in the life to come. So you have to have full faith in the life to come. Well, there's some good news. If you are looking forward to a second life, of course, it could be a terrible one. It doesn't say so, but it just says believe and have faith. So basically this is called an argument from faith, which means you can't disprove it with evidence. So there's been a couple of those sort of proofs where it says the book says it's true, let the book prove that it is true. So we're going to give it a little bit more of a chance. We're going to give it more than page 1 of a chance. Okay, these are guided by their Lord. I assume that includes me reading this, because this is to convert as well as confuse people, I suppose, because a lot of people haven't actually ever read this book, even Muslims, which is completely ridiculous. Okay, so they must read this. So this is for all audiences, but it's rated R, 18 plus. R for religious or religious content. So adults only, people who don't believe things because someone told them. And with these it shall be well. So if you're guided by the Lord, it shall be well. Until the life to come. Ooh, tempting. Okay, so it was starting to brighten there, but just as the tone was starting to be a little bit more, okay, let's just dive straight in. It gets pretty grim, so I'll just get to it. As to the infidels, alike it is to them, whether thou warn them or warn them not, they will not believe. So basically, define an infidel as you will, but what it says is, if you're an infidel, it doesn't matter if you're warned or not warned, if you've heard what's been said down. So even this makes my whole point of this exercise redundant, because what I'm doing here is I'm reading this to you. If you're an infidel, you really should either believe by now or you should just give it up, because I can't convince you by reading this to you, and my arguments in favour of this book are not going to convince you either, because it says so in the book. Unless, of course, you don't believe that the book's true in this verse or in its entirety, somewhere in between there probably. It doesn't matter, they will not believe. So infidels, guess where you're going. It'll add extensions and picture illustrations for you. You can, for your mind, mental illustrations of hell. That's why it's not for children. Okay, I think that's a good note to end it on, but I think we'll keep going. We'll finish the first page. Their hearts and their ears hath God sealed up. That's obviously not literally sealed up, but they mean that they're not going to believe even if you put forth the cosmological argument. That's not what they mean. They mean believe it on faith, because the book can't be from any other source. And it's written like no other book, because there's no real plot that's emerged so far. It's just God's giving sort of instructions, demands, and basically telling us what the fucking deal is. So I can see why a lot of people would see this as a sort of consoling book to read, because it tells you what to do. You don't have to think for yourself necessarily. And if you do think for yourself, you can always just resort to sophistry, where you can logically sort of compartmentalize this as rational if you believe this is true to start with, which is not an assumption we're going to go with. We're going to have to make the assumption that this could be a book from God, but we don't know yet. But the evidence should surely be coming. Let's see. Okay, the ears hath God sealed up. So God sealed the ears. So the infidels, they ain't going to be listening. They ain't going to hear the good news. And over their eyes is a covering. So they're not going to be seeing the good word either. And God's controlling all this, presumably. For them, a severe chastisement. Okay, so this is sort of like the God of the Old Testament a bit, where he stops you from becoming a Muslim in a sense by sealing up your ears and your hearts and your eyes and covering them, and then he punishes you for it. So he just likes to play with his pets, his creations, it seems, but that still doesn't mean he's not out there. 1.5 billion people will disagree with the claim that this is not Allah's book, God's book. So, as we press on, and some there are who say, we believe in God and in the latter day, yet are they not believers? Exclamation mark. So, yet are they not believers? It doesn't say. Fain would they deceive God and those who have believed, but they deceive themselves only and know it not. So basically this is aimed at people who don't believe yet. So I'm pretty sure there's a good reason why it's on the first page, because he's basically laying out that if you don't believe, if you're an infidel, you're pretty much, it's basically a waste of time, because it's already in motion, the wheels are spinning, you're going over the cliff into hell, or you're going to turn that car into a Quranic aeroplane and believe this from the arguments that we've seen so far. So let's just decompress the arguments, or actually compress the arguments, because if we decompress them anymore they'd fall apart on their own. Okay, so he's made a lot of claims, but every single claim is only ever supported by its own assertion as evidence, or it's supported by circular reasoning. But then some Muslims have said to me that, well, no, it has to be written this way so that people can understand it in the context of the time. But it still doesn't get out of why God is chastising people who whether you warn them or not, they will not believe. I mean, ultimately, in the name of God, the compassionate and the merciful, I think we're seeing a little bit of a contradiction here. So, we still haven't detected any reason why it would be called the cow, the Surah, but maybe that's part of God's mysterious enigmatic authorship. Who knows? But diseased are their hearts, and that disease hath God increased to them. Theirs a sore chastisement, for that they treated their prophet as a liar. Now, that's the first mentioning of our good friend who will be coming across Muhammad, who was, of course, the 7th century prophet who the angel Gabriel, via God, in his intermediary Gabriel, sent this, literally these words, word for word, not like the Bible where different authors compiled 66 books. All these surahs came gurgling out of his flapping mouth, and some of it makes sense so far, but I'm not convinced that this is the perfect book. Take a page of Shakespeare, for example, just at random, and I'm sure they'll be equally beautiful to some people. But I'll let you make up your own minds as we press on with the cow. Okay, thanks for listening. 3FS TV, Quranic study. Also, I'd highly recommend Parts 1 and Part 2, the Torah and the Bible, New Testament, starring Jesus and Moses, at all bookstores now. Thank you.